Located in West Africa, Senegal is a cultural hub for the continent of Africa. Senegal is a mecca with robust arts, rich traditions, historic landmarks, and remarkable natural landscapes. Home to 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and 6 national parks, Senegal is a country full of one-of-a-kind experiences. Senegal is the westernmost country in continental Africa, situated on the Atlantic Ocean coastline. Senegal is bordered by Mauritania to the north, Mali to the east, Guinea to the southeast and Guinea-Bissau to the southwest. Senegal nearly surrounds the Gambia, a country occupying a narrow sliver of land along the banks of the Gambia River, which separates Senegal's southern region of Casamance from the rest of the country. Senegal also shares a maritime border with Cape Verde. Senegal's economic and political capital is Dakar. Senegal is the westernmost country in the mainland of the Old World, or Afro-Eurasia. It owes its name to the Senegal River, which borders it to the east and north. The climate is typically Sahelian, though there is a rainy season. Senegal covers a land area of almost 197,000 square kilometers, 76,000 square miles, and has a population of around 18 million. The state is a unitary presidential republic. Since the country's foundation in 1960, it has been recognized as one of the most stable countries on the African continent. On the 2023 VDEM Democracy Indices, Senegal is ranked 52nd in electoral democracy worldwide and 4th in electoral democracy in Africa. The state was formed as part of the independence of French West Africa from French colonial rule. Because of this history, French is the official language, but it is understood by only a minority of the population. Over 30 languages are spoken in Senegal. Wolof is the most widely spoken one, with 80% of the population speaking it as a first or second language, acting as Senegal's lingua franca alongside French. Like other African nations, the country includes a wide mix of ethnic and linguistic communities, with the largest being the Wolof, Fula, and Sera people. Senegalese people are predominantly Muslim. Senegal is classified as a heavily indebted poor country, with a relatively low ranking on the Human Development Index, 170th out of 191. Most of the population lives on the coast and works in agriculture or other food industries. Other major industries include mining, tourism, and services. 23. The country does not have notable natural resources, but the basis of its development lies in education, where almost half the state's budget is spent. Senegal is a member state of the African Union, the United Nations, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the Community of Sahel, Saharan States. In the world of motorsports, Senegal is known for the Paris-Dakar Rally. The country of Senegal is named after the Senegal River. The name of the river may derive from a Portuguese transliteration of the name of the Zanaga, also known as the Sanyaja. Léopold Sédar Senghor was elected Senegal's first president in August 1960. Pro-African, Senghor advocated a brand of African socialism. After the breakup of the Mali Federation, Senghor and Prime Minister Mamadou Dia governed together under a parliamentary system. In December 1962, their political rivalry led to an attempted coup by Dia. The coup was put down without bloodshed and Dia was arrested and imprisoned. Senegal adopted a new constitution that consolidated the president's power. Senghor was considerably more tolerant of opposition than most African leaders became in the 1960s. Nonetheless, political activity was somewhat restricted for a time. Senghor's party, the Senegalese Progressive Union, now the Socialist Party of Senegal, was the only legally permitted party from 1965 until 1975. In the latter year, Senghor allowed the formation of two opposition parties that began operation in 1976: a Marxist party, the African Independence Party, and a liberal party, the Senegalese Democratic Party. The 1960s and early 1970s saw the continued and persistent violating of Senegal's borders by the Portuguese military from Portuguese Guinea. In response, Senegal petitioned the United Nations Security Council in 1963, 1965, 1969, in response to shelling by Portuguese artillery, 1971 and finally in 1972. In 1980, Senghor decided to retire from politics. The next year, he transferred power in 1981 to his hand-picked successor, Abdou Diouf. Former Prime Minister Mamadou Dia, who was Senghor's rival, ran for election in 1983 against Diouf, but lost. Senghor moved to France, where he died at the age of 95. In the 1980s, Boubacar Lam discovered Senegalese oral history that was initially compiled by the tutelar noble, Yoro Diao, not long after World War I, which documented migrations into West Africa from the Nile Valley. Ethnic groups, from the Senegal River to the Niger Delta, retained traditions of having an eastern origin. Senegal joined with the Gambia to form the nominal Senegambia Confederation on February 1, 1982. However, the union was dissolved in 1989. Despite peace talks, a southern separatist group, Movement of Democratic Forces of Casamance or MFDC, in the Casamance region has clashed sporadically with government forces since 1982 in the Casamance conflict. In the early 21st century, violence has subsided and President Macky Sall held talks with rebels in Rome in December 2012. Abdou Diouf was president between 1981 and 2000. He encouraged broader political participation, reduced government involvement in the economy, and widened Senegal's diplomatic engagements, particularly with other developing nations. Domestic politics on occasion spilled over into street violence, border tensions, and a violent separatist movement in the southern region of the Casamance. Nevertheless, Senegal's commitment to democracy and human rights strengthened. Abdou Diouf served 4 terms as president. During the Gulf War, over 500 Senegalese participated in the Battle of Kafie and the unexpected liberation of Kuwait campaign, under the command of the U.S.-led coalition. In the presidential election of 1999, opposition leader Abdoulaye Wade defeated Diouf in an election deemed free and fair by international observers. Senegal experienced its second peaceful transition of power, and its first from one political party to another. On December 30, 2004, President Wade announced that he would sign a peace treaty with the separatist group in the Casamance region. This, however, has yet to be implemented. There was a round of talks in 2005, but the results have not yet yielded a resolution. In March 2012, the incumbent President Abdoulaye Wade lost the presidential election and Macky Sall was elected as the new president of Senegal. President Macky Sall was re-elected in 2019 elections. The presidential term was reduced from 7 years to 5. Since March 3, 2021, Senegal has been rocked by a series of mass protests in response to the arrest of Ousmane Sonko for alleged rape and mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. In June 2023, the response to the protests turned increasingly violent, with Amnesty International counting 23 fatalities, most of which were caused by bullets fired by police or armed police collaborators. Senegal is a republic with a presidency. The president is elected every 5 years as of 2016, previously being 7 years from independence to 2001, 5 years from 2001 to 2008, and 7 years again from 2008 to 2016, by adult voters. The first president, Léopold Sédar Senghor, was a poet and writer, and was the first African elected to the Académie Française. Senegal's second president, Abdou Diouf, later served as General Secretary of the Organisation de la Francophonie. The third president was Abdoulaye Wade, a lawyer. The fourth president was Macky Sall, elected in March 2012 and re-elected in February 2019. On March 25, 2024, Bassirou Diomaye Faye becomes the fifth democratically elected president. Senegal has more than 80 political parties. The unicameral parliament consists of the National Assembly, which has 150 seats, A Senate was in place from 1999 to 2001 and 2007 to 2012. An independent judiciary also exists in Senegal. The nation's highest courts that deal with business issues are the Constitutional Council and the Court of Justice, members of which are named by the President. Senegal is subdivided into 14 regions, each administered by a concile regional council, elected by population weight at the arrondissement level. The country is further subdivided by 45 departments, 113 arrondissements, neither of which have administrative function, and by collectivités locales, which elect administrative officers. Regional capitals have the same name as their respective regions. Dakar, Diarbil, Fatick, Kaffrine, Kaolack, Kédougou, Kolda, Louga, Matam, St. Louis, Sédhiou, Tambacounda, Thiès, Ziguinchor. Senegal has a high profile in many international organizations and was a member of the UN Security Council in 1988-89 and 2015-2016. It was elected to the UN Commission on Human Rights in 1997. Friendly to the West, especially to France and the United States, Senegal has vigorously advocated for more assistance from developed countries to the Third World. The Foreign Minister of Senegal is Aïssata Tall Sall. She took office in November 2020. Senegal enjoys mostly cordial relations with its neighbors. In spite of clear progress on other issues with Mauritania, border security, resource management, economic integration, etc., an estimated 35,000 Mauritanian refugees, of the estimated 40,000 who were expelled from their home country in 1989, remain in Senegal. Senegal is well integrated with the main bodies of the international community, including the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the African Union, O, and the Community of Sahel, Saharan States. The armed forces of Senegal consist of about 17,000 personnel in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Gendarmerie. The Senegalese military receives most of its training, equipment, and support from France and the United States, and to a lesser extent Germany. Military non-interference in political affairs has contributed to Senegal's stability since independence. Senegal has participated in many international and regional peacekeeping missions. Most recently, in 2000, Senegal sent a battalion to the Democratic Republic of Congo to participate in MONUC, the United Nations peacekeeping mission, and agreed to deploy a US-trained battalion to Sierra Leone for UNAMSIL, another UN peacekeeping mission. In 2015, Senegal participated in the Saudi Arabian-led military intervention in Yemen against the Shia Houthis. Senegal is located on the west of the African continent. It lies between latitudes 12 degrees and 17 degrees north, and longitudes 11 degrees and 18 degrees west. Senegal is externally bounded by the Atlantic Ocean to the west, Mauritania to the north, Mali to the east, and Guinea and Guinea Bissau to the south. Internally it almost completely surrounds the Gambia, namely on the north, east and south, except for Gambia's short Atlantic coastline. The Senegalese landscape consists mainly of the rolling sandy plains of the western Sahel which rise to foothills in the southeast. Here is also found Senegal's highest point, Bonnet Ridge, situated 2.7 kilometers southeast of Napendayaka at 648 meters 2,126 feet. The northern border is formed by the Senegal River. Other rivers include the Gambia and Casamance rivers. The capital Dakar lies on the Cape Verde Peninsula, the westernmost point of continental Africa. The Cape Verde Islands lie some 560 kilometers, 350 miles, off the Senegalese coast, but Cape Verde, Cape Green, is a maritime place mark, set at the foot of Les Mamelles, a 105-meter, 344 feet, cliff resting at one end of the Cape Verde Peninsula onto which is settled Senegal's capital Dakar, and 1 kilometer, 0.6 miles, south of the Point de Almadies, the westernmost point in Africa. Senegal contains 4 terrestrial ecoregions: Guinean forest savanna mosaic, Sahelian acacia savanna, West Sudanese savanna, and Guinean mangroves. It had a 2019 Forest Landscape Integrity Index mean score of 7.11/10, ranking it 56th globally out of 172 countries. The economy of Senegal is driven by mining, construction, tourism, fishing, and agriculture, which are the main sources of employment in rural areas, despite abundant natural resources in iron, zircon, gas, gold, phosphates, and numerous oil discoveries recently. Senegal's economy gains most of its foreign exchange from fish, phosphates, ground nuts, tourism, and services. As one of the dominant parts of the economy, the agricultural sector of Senegal is highly vulnerable to environmental conditions, such as variations in rainfall and climate change, and changes in world commodity prices. Dakar, the former capital of French West Africa, is also home to banks and other institutions which serve all of Francophone West Africa, and is a hub for shipping and transport in the region. Senegal also has one of the best developed tourist industries in Africa. Senegal's economy depends on foreign assistance. It is a member of the World Trade Organization. The main obstacles to the economic development of the country are its great corruption with inefficient justice, very slow administrative formalities, and a failing education sector. The main industries include food processing, mining, cement, artificial fertilizer, chemicals, textiles, refining imported petroleum, and tourism. Exports include fish, chemicals, cotton, fabrics, ground nuts, and calcium phosphate. As a member of the West African Economic and Monetary Union, WEMU, Senegal is working toward greater regional integration with a unified external tariff. Senegal is also a member of the Organization for the Harmonization of Business Law in Africa. Senegal achieved full internet connectivity in 1996, creating a mini-boom in information technology-based services. Private activity now accounts for 82% of its GDP. On the negative side, Senegal faces deep-seated urban problems of chronic high unemployment, socio-economic disparity, juvenile delinquency, and drug addiction. Senegal is a major recipient of international development assistance. Donors include the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, Japan, France, and China. Over 4,000 Peace Corps volunteers have served in Senegal since 1963. Senegal has a population of around 18 million, about 42% of whom live in rural areas. Density in these areas varies from about 77 inhabitants per square kilometer, 200/sq mi, in the west central region to 2 per square kilometer, 5.2/sq mi, in the arid eastern section. Senegal has a wide variety of ethnic groups and, as in most West African countries, several languages are widely spoken. The Wolof are the largest ethnic group in Senegal at 36%, the Fula and Tukulur, also known as Halpularan, literally Pular speakers, 30%, are the second biggest group, followed by the Serer, 14.7%, then others such as Jola, 4%, Mandinka, 3%, Moors or Narkajors, Sinink, Bassari and many smaller communities, 9%. See also the Badik ethnic group. About 50,000 Europeans, mostly French, reside in Senegal. Smaller numbers of other migrants, namely Lebanese Mauritanians and Moroccans reside in Senegal, mainly in the cities, and some retirees who reside in the resort towns around Mber. The majority of Lebanese work in commerce. Most of the Lebanese originate from the Lebanese city of Tyre, which is known as Little West Africa and has a main promenade that is called Avenue du Sénégal. French is the official language, spoken by all those who have spent several years in the educational system, in which French is used as the medium of instruction. Dakar, the capital, is by far the largest city in Senegal, with over 2 million residents. The second most populous city is Touba, a de jure communauté rurale, rural community, with over 500,000 people. Senegal is a secular state, although Islam is the predominant religion in the country, practiced by 97.2% of the country's population. The Christian community, At 2.7% of the population, consists mostly of Roman Catholics, but there are also diverse evangelicals denominations. Life expectancy at birth was estimated to be 66.8 years in 2016, 64.7 years male, 68.7 years female. Public expenditure on health was at 2.4% of the GDP in 2004, whereas private expenditure was at 3.5%. Education is compulsory and free up to the age of 16. The Ministry of Labor has indicated that the public school system is unable to cope with the number of children that must enroll each year. Portuguese is taught at schools at the secondary high school level, given the large Cape Verdean community, and also from Guinea-Bissau. Senegal is well known for the West African tradition of storytelling, which is done by griots, who have kept West African history alive for thousands of years through words and music. Because Senegal borders the Atlantic Ocean, fish is very important. Chicken, lamb, peas, eggs, and beef are also used in Senegalese cooking, but not pork, due to the nation's largely Muslim population. Peanuts, the primary crop of Senegal, as well as couscous, white rice, sweet potatoes, lentils, black-eyed peas, and various vegetables, are also incorporated into many recipes. Meats and vegetables are typically stewed or marinated in herbs and spices, and then poured over rice or couscous, or eaten with bread. Senegal is known across Africa for its musical roots, due to the popularity of mbalax, which originated from the Sira percussive tradition, especially the Njoup. It has been popularized by Youssou N'Dour, Omar Pène, and others. Sabar drumming is especially popular. The sabar is mostly used in special celebrations such as weddings. Another instrument, the tama, is used in more ethnic groups. Other popular international renowned Senegalese musicians are Ismail Lo, Cheikh Lo, Orchestra Baobab, Baba Mal, Akon, Usborne, Thian Sek, Vivian, Fallou Dieng, Titi, Sekau Keita and Pape Diouf. Senegalese play many sports. Wrestling and football are the most popular sports in the country. Senegal will host the 2026 Summer Youth Olympics in Dakar, making Senegal the first African country to host an Olympic event. Senegalese wrestling is the country's most popular sport and has become a national obsession. It traditionally serves many young men to escape poverty, and it is the only sport recognized as developed independently of Western culture. Football is a popular sport in Senegal. In 2022, the national team beat Egypt to win the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time, and they were runners-up in 2002 and 2019. They became one of only 5 African teams to ever reach the quarter-finals of the FIFA World Cup, after Cameroon in 1990 and before Ghana in 2010, defeating holders France in their first game in 2002. Senegal qualified for the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia, and for the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Senegal has traditionally been one of Africa's dominant basketball powers. The men's team performed better than that of any other African nation at the 2014 FIBA World Cup, where they reached the playoffs for the first time. The women's team won 19 medals at 20 African championships, more than twice as many medals as any competitor. When the country hosted the 2019 FIBA Women's Afrobasket, 15,000 fans flocked to the Dakar Arena, which is registered as a record attendance for basketball in Africa. Senegal was one of the continent's pioneers in basketball, as it established one of Africa's first competitive leagues. In 2016, the NBA announced the launch of an elites academy in Africa, and more precisely in Senegal. The country hosted the Paris-Dakar Rally from 1979 until 2007. The Dakar Rally was an off-road endurance motorsport race which followed a course from Paris, France, to Dakar, Senegal. The competitors used off-road vehicles to cross the difficult geography. The last race was held in 2007, before the 2008 rally was cancelled a day before the event due to security concerns in Mauritania. The Ocean X Prix of the Electric Off-Road Championship Extreme E was also hosted in Senegal. Thank you for watching this video.